Everybody. Just got back from Key West, Florida. Took a trip down there, stopped by the Ernest Hemingway home. We watched the Ken Burns documentary on Ernest Hemingway. If you haven't ever seen it, it's totally worth a watch. Went down there with Arlene, of course, and Nathan and Isabella. And this is kind of a view from the outside, outside the fence now. It's kind of walled off. It wasn't initially, but the story was Hemingway came back from Europe with his wife, heard about the fishing down in Key West, liked it down there so much he was waiting for a car, had to stay, and then liked it so much his wife's rich uncle bought the place for $8,000, and they fixed it up, which equates to about $150,000 today's dollars. Fixed it up, and they lived in it for probably from the early 30s to like late 30s. He did a lot of his writing. He finished For Whom the Bell Tolls there at this house. So these are just some shots. Before we did the tour on the inside, this was just kind of some shots from the outside. Lots of lush vegetation, everything around it. It wasn't that way back in the day when they lived there. It's kind of grown up since then, but you could see the heavy, a lot of the ironwork and everything else. It was originally one of the richest men in the country. Initially built this house back in the way back in the 1850s is when it was built. Sat empty for a long time. Of course, the Hemingways came and fixed it all up and all. So, big thing, the big six-toed cats. There's one of them. Lots of cats around there. The most heavily petted cats in the world, I think. Poor cats. They just don't even care anymore. They just be little girls walking up to them, petting them. They're like, yeah, whatever. So, anyway, there's some views from the outside of the house. So, he liked it so much down there while he's waiting for the car. He's like, let's just live here. And they bought the house, fixed it up. Really fell in love with the fishing. A lot of fishing there. One of these guys, and you'll see a check later that he signed to this guy, was kind of the inspiration for The Old Man and the Sea. A lot of old Cuban fishermen that took him out a lot. He did a lot of deep sea fishing there. He got so sick of, once he got famous with his writing, he got so sick of it, he had a wall put up around the house to kind of keep the gawkers out, is what he called them. People that would walk right up on the porch and look in the window and everything else. So, this is some of the kennels that they keep the cats in. I think they said there's like 60 of them around there. So they try to keep the population under control. So the females are allowed. They said they're allowed one litter, and then they're spayed. So yeah, I thought this was kind of neat. Just some footprints in the concrete there from the cats. Hemingway loved the cats. Of course, the nautical terms, they were good. These six-toed cats. Here's a picture of six toes. Were great mousers. So, of course, sailors loved them, and they would keep them on their ships. He was presented one as a gift by a captain there in Key West, and these cats, they're basically descendants from Snowball, the first cat that he got. So, pretty interesting. Big cat guy. So, I am not. I'm more of a dog guy, but I don't hate cats. So, these cats are well taken care of. This next thing is a swimming pool, which was kind of a unique at the time. It's kind of an interesting story. His wife at the time, Hemingway's wife, he was away in Spain covering the Spanish Civil War, and she found out that he was having an affair. And of course, she's there with his boys, and says, "Well, you know what? This was kind of a revenge purchase. It cost $20,000 to put this pool in." And which is an astronomical sum back then. And this is quite the thing. This used to be where his boxing ring was. So there's Bella. Hey, Bella. She put this thing in. He came home and saw it and heard how much it cost, and basically got upset. And he's like, "Well, here's my last penny, and that's it right there." He supposedly took this penny out of his pocket and said, "Well, you've spent every last penny. You might as well have it. Here it is." And she put that into the concrete there. There's a close-up of it. It's kind of a funny story. may or may not be true. Probably is. He was, yeah. So he he had 4 wives. Documentary kind of really goes into that, but this is kind of a view. A lot of wedding venues went there. A lot of people have their weddings and they have events there. This nice little side porches. Love all the windows. Everything open. Catch the breeze back before AC, of course. This was a view from what it looked like back in the 30s. You can see it's not quite such lush vegetation all around it back then. Back in the 30s. And this was from the 60s, so 65. So lady bought the house afterwards and basically fixed it up and turned it over as kind of a memorial to Hemingway, as a coat of arms. Next kind of explains a little bit. You can pause the video if you need to. So this was, we picked it up on the inside of the house to tour. Kind of a little shrine to all his fishing there. Big sport fisherman. He loved sport fishing. That's his model of his ship there in the bottom left corner, the Pilar, which was his nickname for his wife. And he was a big sport fisherman, loved fishing. He would cruise all around around off the coast of Cuba, all down the Keys there, going after the big sport fish. As one of his typewriters, and of course there's the model of the Pilar. He loved that ship. I think it's down in Cuba now. The Cubans, of course, he lived down in Cuba for a while with his 3rd wife, and
they divorced us. He married Polly. That's when they moved here, and they had 2 children. See, Patrick and Greg. Those boys grew up in this house, and in that photograph, Greg was holding. Oh my cat. The cat was named Snow White. The movie's just...
Yeah, so there's they found these checks in a safe when they were redoing the house, checks that he had filled out and signed. And one of them, this next one, is this guy. That's the guy they think that he wrote or modeled the Old Man in the Sea from this guy, Carlos Gutierrez there. Taught him a lot about fishing. Pretty cool. Cancel checks. This is actually a urinal that came out of the old Sloppy Joe's bar, and he had it. He took it and turned it into this little fountain piece here. But that's actually a urinal there on the bottom from his famous bar, Sloppy Joe's. There is a Sloppy Joe's there, but it's not the original one. I'll have another video that shows the original one now. It's called Captain Tony's, which is a whole nother story. We'll get into that later. I just thought that was kind of interesting. This is his study. Shot of his study where he did all his writing. He was very disciplined. He would go in the morning and write from 6 in the morning till noon. Every day he would go in. 6 hours a day he would go in and write. You can see a lot of his trophies and things from his African safari. There's he probably shot that thing, whatever that is. Not the fish, the other thing with the horns. Typewriter there. No telling what's on that typewriter. No telling what he's writing. There's various things around his room. But he would get in there and write every day. And hat he wore there and from his African safari. He believed in he couldn't write it unless he lived it. A lot of the stories are biographical sense. This is a kitchen. And this was a portrait he had done of him from his younger days, and see the scar there on his head from he pulled down a big lamp on top of his head in Paris when he lived there. Some trinkets he brought back from Africa. This was a downstairs bathroom. You can see this was high class back then. This was high living back in the day. This is a back balcony outside the bedroom. He had a walkway to his writing room that has since been torn down, but it's easy access. So this is the outside the shot. It was totally worth it. I hope you enjoyed the tour. This was a great place to go if you go to Key West. So take care.